Another round of applause for Alicia, please, folks. Ben, can I get you to come up to the stage?
Sure.
Thank you very much, sir.
Welcome.
Ben from Tenable. Thank you for your time.
So the slide tells you exactly what I am. I'm a principal security engineer at Tenable. My topic is going back in time a bit. It's basically how the cloud exposes 24-year-old tech to attack. Now, the problem is a lot of our IAM is still baked on technology that is literally 24 years old, and that is Active Directory. Now, my focus at Tenable is all around Active Directory security. Now, when we go and we have a look at what we're talking about here, Active Directory is a fundamental technology of basically most organizations' IAM programs. Active Directory came around about as part of Windows 2000. If you were using it before that, you were using NT4 directory services, but the underlying fundamentals of Active Directory, including what's coming in 2025, which is vNext, has not changed. We've had a lot of conversations today about how we need to layer security technologies, and some of those fundamental missing things like multi-factor authentication, like passwordless authentication, are still not something we're going to be able to achieve on that base IAM. Now, Active Directory just recently had its 24th birthday, yay. But why am I talking about a 24-year-old technology? 90% of organizations are using Active Directory as their core IAM, making it literally one of the most critical assets of an organization. When an organization goes and looks at what they're doing from a perspective of taking a base source identity, they may be using a platform to push it into Active Directory, they may be federating it beyond Active Directory, but a lot of the time a user in an environment starts from a third-party system, gets created in AD, then gets federated out. Now, Active Directory is a target. It is deployed just about everywhere. It holds the keys to just about everything. Unfortunately, me working in technology, I know that the water delivered to my house, all of the ICS and SCADA systems, somebody needs to be able to log into them to be able to perform actions. That's done using servers and workstations with Active Directory. Cloud's never coming into those environments in a meaningful way because reliability and uptime for them is paramount. They want it as close as possible. And it's also super susceptible. Now, if you go through and you try and do a lot of the certifications around penetration testing today, you're going to learn what all of these tools and technologies are, because part of those fundamental principles nowadays is compromising a domain controller. It is also heavily used because, we have all of these open source tools, because we have all of that knowledge out there about how weak it is. It's involved in every piece of ransomware out there as well. Because if you can enumerate an organization's Active Directory, I know every user you have, I know everyone's email address, I know everyone's phone numbers, I know everything you're storing in Active Directory, and organizations have really poor cyber hygiene when it comes to AD. So, because it holds the key to the kingdom, why am I talking about cloud? It's because cloud is it's not a new frontier, but the recent Midnight Blizzard attack has really exposed what has been going on for a really long time. It's just taken somebody like Microsoft themselves to get compromised, that things like password spraying attacks and brute forcing and credential stuffing have really become top of mind for a lot of people. And the knowledge about weak principles like OAuth, where there is no MFA, have really come to the mind. Now, all of these data sets are, sorry Microsoft, had to fix that one there. Renaming 10-year-old technology, can you not? All of these systems are providing direct ways for a threat actor to be able to test credentials I may have harvested off the internet or access that I want to go into your environment. All of these are used as federation services. So how can we leverage the cloud to attack our on-premise environments? So whereas as a threat actor, I would usually have to try and exploit the identity inside the environment, I can now test every credential I have on your organization outside of it. I can test it against your, we had Okta up here talking about how many brute force attempts they see against their users. We know Microsoft is seeing those sorts of attacks. Unfortunately, ADFS is also in this basket, but I'm not talking about it because it's not considered cloud, even though it federates to everyone's cloud. So as an attacker, I just have an easy way now to be able to tempt your external attack surface and find out what credentials are in there and what can I do with them. So if I take our Active Directory, I've taken it, I've synced it up to these environments. What's the key thing we're all talking about here? It's our passwords. So this is a really good diagram. The delta between the 2021 one and the 2023 one was scary, purely because in the 2021 one, an 8-character password was hours rather than seconds or minutes. Whereas nowadays, if you were to rerun this with the power of compute that we have, it's going to get even worse and even less. So what that means is we need to be looking at better password policies. So password spraying attacks. It is very simple. I find out what I know about an organization. Now, unfortunately, there's really easy sources of intelligence about what users are using passwords. Have I been pawned is one of them. But there's a lot of data brokers out there that will give you username and password combinations. A lot of them, you can actually go and have a look at an organization's email domain and go and find out every password we know about that organization. And you can find out those typical passwords. I know every organization has that default password that you get your users reset to. Unfortunately, so do the threat actors. And if they get it within time, they've got an in. So how easy is it for me to actually exploit it? We go back to open source. And we go to a tool like Trevor Spray, which basically lets me just jam in a single username with thousands of passwords or email addresses I want to go looking at. And I can just go and brute force. Now, the thing is, this is using an endpoint in the Microsoft stack. I don't care if I can actually log on or not. I don't care if I can get to your MFA. All I care about is, can I identify that password that I know is working? Because I'm going to use it as part of the next stage of my attacks. So, but we have MFA. Yeah, MFA has problems. MFA has problems everywhere because MFA is only as good as its implementation. And if we're talking about a workstation and me being able to compromise it, MFA doesn't really mean much, as we've heard today with some of them. You've got to layer on technologies. So I've got a working password. What do I go and do with that password? Now, as a threat actor, if I send you an email imitating your help desk saying, "Hi, Bob, your password is this. I need you to run this command for me because your password's weak and I'm going to get you to change it." There is no patch for human nature. There is no way that we can try and educate our users, but our user education is always going to be lagging behind. So we need to be looking at the system. And you're going to say, but I've got EDR. And EDR is very useful, but again, EDR is only as good as its implementation and what endpoints you're actually going and protecting it with. And my whole pitch here is there is literally no silver bullet. And that's actually generated by DALL-E AI, so I could get, a nice image that didn't have copyright on it. So what can we actually do? When we go and we talk about what we can do in these situations, we need to be looking at layering our protections. There is no silver bullet, but every little step helps. And when we go and we look at that, you notice the first thing, policies, user education, audits, MFA, EDR. Now, the top bit of this has nothing to do with technology and technology vendors. It has everything to do with the squishy humans we've been talking about if you start layering these approaches, you get a really good base fundamental to work off, and then you can go and you can look at your technology. Now, the thing is about audits, those open source tools that I talked about earlier, you can use them. You can use them to perform audits in your environment. They are labor intensive, and I work for a vendor. The whole idea of vendors is to make life easier, but you can do it without a vendor as well. And the other thing is we get into some of the other areas we want to look at, all getting down to protecting our crown jewels. So what can we do to review our Active Directory security? One, assess privilege accounts. It's not only those who are a membership of privileged groups, it's who has inherent privilege through ACLs and controls. Update and enforce your password policy. A lot of organizations haven't updated this for 5, 6 years. We need to, the thing about password policy is that organizations need to go at is, it's not necessarily about the complexity, it's the uniqueness of your passwords and making sure that the user is using something globally unique and that you're verifying that no user in the organization is using the same password that's ever been used before or that's part of a data breach and they're reasonably easy to assess. Now, verify your syncing to these external accounts and make sure they have as few rights as possible. Verify your service accounts. Of course, you would not believe the amount of service accounts we find that have zero purpose in an organization, but enormous levels of privilege. And as we'll see later, the same password as quite a few other service accounts within the environment. So make the account passwords unique, secure your legacies, and verify your user attributes because there's a lot of things you can hide. So what do we do on the cloud? Rule 1. Never sync privileged users from the cloud to on-prem or from on-prem to cloud. Make them globally unique. And that is probably the key takeaway I will take for you there, because as a threat actor, if I manage to get anyone who has privilege anywhere, if I'm on one of your workstations, I'm going to try and laterally move. I'm going to try and get further in your environment. And to do that, I'm going to use credentials. Segregate your privileged accounts. Every cloud environment should have dedicated administrative tier accounts. If you can, use least privilege or just in time. PAM does it. Other vendors do it. Take as much least privilege as you can. Make a uniform password policy across all your different cloud environments. People hate having one password policy on-prem and another password policy out there when they try and go and set the password for a third-party service you're forcing them to access. MFA, just enable it, and never have safe locations. Big thing, because if I'm on one of your workstations and I'm at a safe location, I'm never going to get prompted for MFA. And the other thing is protect your tenants, assess your third-party permissions. And one critical thing, never let your users share passwords. I will give you a real example here. We have an organization we helped assess that had 12 administrative tier accounts from one third-party vendor. They all had the same password. Make sure users have unique creds. And I speed run that so we can have a bit of time for questions if anyone has anything. Otherwise, I'm standing between you and Adrian finishing up and drinks. Thank you so much. Ben, do we have questions for Ben? That was brilliant. Cool. If you have any questions, come up and see us at our little table stand. Please grab a pair of socks and enter to win our Lego. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ben. Cheers, man. And with that, folks, I am the last thing between you and drinks today. So it's been a long day, but hopefully a few tidbits of wonderful information you got your way today. So thank you very much to all our speakers today, particularly those who came from interstate. So Fred, Alicia, and many others. So thank you so much for coming down and sharing your wisdom with us. If you haven't already received one, we do have a small gift of bubbles for you. So thank you. Just small compensation for the hours of work you've put into all your proposals, presentations. Thank you. So thank you to all our identity technology partners today too that have participated either as speakers or running a trade table out there. Folks, as we move into networking and schmoozing, please go and have a chat, see what they've got to offer. They've got some great demos they can